Elon Musk sat in his office, a rare moment of stillness in the chaotic whirlwind of ambition and innovation that had become his daily reality. His mind, always racing with ideas, had latched onto a particular thought sparked by a casual conversation with a colleague. They had been discussing human behavior, social perceptions, and the invisible barriers that defined interactions. A question lingered in his mind long after the discussion had ended. What if people didn't recognize him? How would they treat him if they believed he had nothing? That thought, simple yet profound, slowly turned into an unshakable challenge. He had built rockets, revolutionized the auto industry, and pushed the limits of artificial intelligence. But now he was about to embark on an experiment that had nothing to do with technology and everything to do with the core of human nature. Weeks later, on a gloomy Thursday afternoon, the plan was finalized. His disguise was simple, yet masterfully effective. He dressed in second-hand clothes, worn, faded, and slightly oversized, purchased from a local thrift store. His sneakers were scuffed, barely holding together at the seams. To complete the transformation, a team of makeup artists worked meticulously, adding subtle yet effective details to his face, darkening the skin under his eyes, roughening his complexion, and ensuring that every feature that had appeared on magazine covers and news feeds was erased. The result? Elon Musk, the billionaire visionary, had disappeared. In his place stood an unremarkable man who looked as though he had struggled for years. He had carefully chosen the setting for his experiment, the Copper Elm, an upscale restaurant in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was known for its exclusivity, a place where the wealthy and elite gathered to indulge in fine dining behind crystal glasses and candlelit tables. This wasn't about exposing cruelty or embarrassing anyone. No, he simply wanted to understand. Would people look beyond the surface, or would appearances dictate their actions? Before stepping out, he took one last glance in the mirror. The face staring back at him was unfamiliar, almost haunting. For the first time in years, he felt something foreign, invisibility. He had spent decades being recognized wherever he went, admired, criticized, but never ignored. Now, he was just another nameless figure. With a deep breath, his heart beating unexpectedly fast, he stepped out the door. The experiment had begun. An unwelcome presence. The ride to the restaurant was uneventful, the city buzzing as usual. But for Elon, every passing moment carried a weight of anticipation. The world felt different when you weren't seen. As he reached the grand double doors of the Copper Elm, he hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Then, gathering himself, he pushed them open and stepped inside. The restaurant was exactly as he had expected, elegant, refined, exclusive. Chandeliers cast a golden glow over meticulously set tables, and soft music intertwined with the murmur of conversations and the occasional clinking of silverware. At first, no one paid him much attention. Patrons barely glanced up before returning to their meals, too absorbed in their own worlds. But the staff? Their reactions were immediate. Their gazes lingered, their expressions shifting almost imperceptibly. He was an anomaly in this space. A hostess, dressed impeccably in black, approached him hesitantly. Her professional smile barely masked the uncertainty in her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but tight. Elon nodded, keeping his tone steady yet soft. "Yes, I'd like a table for one." The hostess hesitated. "A table? Here?" Her eyes flickered toward the bar where a manager stood, arms crossed, watching the exchange with barely concealed skepticism. There were empty tables, plenty of them. But still, she responded quickly. "I'm sorry, sir. We're fully booked for the evening." Elon noticed the quick glance she gave to the available seats, but he said nothing. He simply stood there, letting the silence stretch between them. From across the room, a young server named Sophia had been observing. She had only been working at the Copper Elm for a few months, saving up for culinary school. Something about the man's posture, his quiet dignity, stood out to her. It wasn't pity she felt, but curiosity. Before the hostess could dismiss him entirely, Sophia spoke up. "I can seat him," she called out. The restaurant fell silent for a moment. All eyes turned to her. Even the manager, who had been silently hoping to avoid confrontation, frowned but said nothing. Elon turned to Sophia, offering the faintest smile. She led him to a small table near the kitchen doors. Not exactly a prime spot, but it was a seat. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Sophia placed a menu in front of him, ignoring the whispers that started up around her. "Take your time." As Elon flipped through the menu, he could feel the weight of the room's judgment pressing in on him. The other diners whispered behind napkins, cast sideways glances, and speculated. Who is he? Why is he here? A server, unaware of how loud he was speaking, muttered to a colleague, "This is going to scare off the regulars." Elon noted every reaction, every look, every word. This was what he had come to see, how quickly people passed judgment, how little kindness was given when there was nothing to gain. When Sophia returned, Elon kept his order simple. Soup and bread. She raised an eyebrow. "That's all." He nodded. "That's all." She didn't press further, just offered a small nod and disappeared into the kitchen. Unlike the others, she didn't question his presence. She simply accepted it. Judgment and truth. As Elon quietly ate his meal, the tension in the restaurant thickened. A well-dressed man at a nearby table leaned toward his companion and muttered, "What is management thinking? Letting someone like that in here?" The manager himself watched the entire scene unfold, his posture stiff, his jaw clenched. Meanwhile, Sophia continued her work with the same grace and patience. Even when an older woman sneered, "Why are you wasting time on him?" she responded firmly, "Because everyone deserves respect." Elon couldn't help but admire her. Standing up for kindness in a place where it wasn't expected, that took courage. When he finished his meal, he slowly rose from his chair. The room grew eerily silent. He walked to the center of the restaurant, stopping just before the manager. The man immediately stepped forward, ready to usher him out. "Sir, if you're finished, I'll have to ask you to leave." Elon raised a hand, not in defiance, but in quiet command. "I will. But first, I have something to say." And with that, he removed his wig. A wave of gasps rippled through the room. Patrons sat frozen, their eyes widening in shock as they recognized the man they had dismissed. Elon Musk. He let the silence stretch, watching as realization dawned on their faces. "Tonight, I was not the billionaire you know. I was just another man, one you didn't think was worth your time. And in doing so, you all revealed something." His gaze landed on Sophia, except for one person. Her face flushed as she hesitantly stepped forward. "You treated me like a human being, and that's the kind of character that truly matters." Then, he pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Inside, a check for $50,000 and a note that simply read, "Thank you for your kindness. The world needs more people like you." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. The room, once filled with judgment, was now filled with shame. Elon turned to the rest of the restaurant and left them with one final thought. Appearances can deceive, but the way you treat people, that reveals everything. And with that, he walked out, leaving behind a room full of people who would never forget that night.